Welcome back, FPL Surgery listeners. This is episode 230 of the FPL Surgery podcast. We're recording on Monday the 1st of November, just before the Wolves against Everton game. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, you might have noticed we were not live. This is because this week Dave actually can't make it due to work commitments. But luckily, we've got a familiar face filling in. Before we begin, our headlines this week, we're keeping them quite simple. We're going to discuss Spurs. We're going to discuss Man United, and we've had a lot of questions on what to do with Antonio. So this week I'm joined by Josh. How's it going, Josh?
Good evening, mate. I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm good. How's retirement from podcasting?
It's all right. It's good. I had lots of time to focus on my business. The little one's on the way in about 6 weeks' time, I think. So, yeah, we're all good. And but yeah, making my second appearance this evening. So yeah, gonna be and yeah, obviously as a co-host this time, obviously in Dave's shoes, and obviously we've got a guest as well.
Yeah, and without Dave, I couldn't do any of the YouTube stuff. I need to learn over the international break. So if Dave can make it back after the international break, brilliant. Otherwise, I've got a lot of learning to do. Apparently, it's quite easy, but
what does Iceman always say? Go on to YouTube and watch videos of how to do it.
Yeah, that's what I need to do. The irony that I'll be looking on YouTube on how to put something live on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but probably the best way. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I haven't got a clue, so not of help. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll sort it out. But no, thanks everyone for listening. Now this week's guest, he's had 3 top 10k finishes. Last 4 years record is insane. It's 12k, 32k, 4k, and 23k as well. So welcome to the podcast, Pras. Hi there, Pras. How's it going?
Hi guys. Thanks for having me. Hi Rich. Hi Josh. Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here. One of the funny stories is the first podcast that I downloaded ever was the FPL surgery one. So it's really nice to be on. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Do you know what episode number it would have been?
3 years ago. I mean, it was obviously Iceman back in the time, but yeah, no, it's great to be here.
Yeah, no, brilliant. No, thanks for coming on. It's strange, isn't it? Because I mean, I used to listen to FPL surgery. Never thought I'd actually be on it, let alone hosting it for a little while. So it is strange. But I guess we should get straight into it and get into our game weeks. So we'll start with you, Pras, as the guest. So how did your game week go?
Well, I scored 58 points, which was good, and most of the workload was taken by James, who I had on my game week 8 wildcard. Salah captained by everyone else, and I got lucky with the Umbumo auto sub Livramento coming on, and that was basically my game week. But and Rafinha, sorry, and that gave me 58 points up to about 60k, and whatever happens tonight will bring me down slightly, but pretty happy with where I am at the moment.
How are you so consistent? It's like the last 4 years, your worst finish is 32k, and now you're already gonna. I'd say it's pretty likely you're going to be, in the top reaches again.
I mean, it's a bit of everything. I think having done this for about 11 years, there's a realization that it's a long season. I try not to go for, the instant gratification that comes with being on Twitter, that I'll have the next captain. Now, I don't want to use the word Havertz here, but look, that's the thing. It's a marathon. So when I play this game, if I was 200k by Christmas, that would be fine, because I know you'd make up, with the chips and the planning in the second half. And that's what I try to do. There's no magic formula, as we all know, who've been playing for a very long time. Just being consistent and doing the right thing week in, week out. Not knee-jerking when there's a bad week, continuing to stay up when you're ahead of the game, which I feel like at the moment, because I wildcarded 2 weeks ago. I think that's about it.
Yeah, well, we wildcarded at the same time, so I'm glad to hear.
No, actually, you were a week after me. I think weren't you the week after the international break?
So mine was last week I wildcarded.
Yeah, mine was the international break, which was game week 8, which is why I didn't have Chilwell and I went for. So I think the main difference is between my week wildcard, the international break, was people went for double City, and your week when City, Diaz was subbed off, or I think he didn't start, and he was subbed on. game week 9 wildcarders went for double Chelsea, which was, has turned out great for you guys.
That's right. Yeah. No, because I remember, because actually when I wildcarded, I was a little bit annoyed because my team was very similar to the week before's wildcard, but I was paying more money for it. So I guess that was the one benefit, but I can't say that was on purpose. That was
indeed. And in our week, we had Lukaku as well, much, of course, to the disappointment of him getting injured. But yeah, I think good spot. I've carried about 6 million in the bank since the Lukaku injury. I downgraded him to Tony, and I've just kept the money.
I was just looking at your team, Pras. You're not adverse to a hit either, right?
I'm not, and especially in the first half of the season, I think with the price changes, with new information, I don't mind it. And this year, actually, it fell flat because I had a very good start. I was about 58k after 3 games. And then I said, look, I need to
two incredible game week ranks. The first 2 weeks game week ranks of 150k and 180k.
Exactly, and it was uncharted territory for me. And so I thought, look, I need to capitalize. So I basically sold Tsimikas, got Jota in for a hit because Firmino got injured. That fell flat. I got DCL in for a hit. He got injured. DCL was replaced by Bamford. He got injured. So suddenly the good start was completely derailed. But then the wildcards come back, and it's.
You reminded me of what happened to me last season. I had a really good start game week 1 and 2, and then invested in triple Wolves and triple City, and Richel. He did similar too. But I was going to say, not only adverse to a hit, but you've got some good team value built up as well. I've noticed, which obviously a lot of the way the game works as well is sometimes the more transfers you make, if you're making the right ones or you're bringing in players who are obviously on the rise, then you are going to have a good team value. So interesting.
Yeah, and being aggressive with those Chelsea defenders seems to have worked for people this season. Obviously a lot of people had Alonso or got Alonso, then they got Rudiger, Azpilicueta. And now it's about the fullback. So you've had to bounce around to get the hauls.
It's funny. Last time I was on the pod, what was that about? Was it about a month ago, maybe?
Wasn't even that.
Wasn't it? Oh,
no,
anyway, when I was last on the pod, I remember saying, get your Chelsea defender for this run and stick with them. What an absolute load of crap that was.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't listen.
I'm on my third Chelsea defender, I think, of the season now. And weirdly enough, it's not, there is a flavour each week, but actually if you have jumped around with them at the right times, you've got some serious points out of it, because as the stats have shown, the amount of goals that are coming from our defenders, this season is just absolutely ridiculous. There's all of us, who own Cancelo, who literally are being starved every week. He's not scored a goal all season in the Premier League, and Chelsea defenders from all positions are not banging them in every week. It's it's a crazy one, sort of crazy run that we've been on with our defenders scoring so many goals and stuff.
So is that a nice segue into your team, Josh?
I guess so, yeah. So I took my first hit of the season this week. I am more hit adverse, Pras, and it was a hit that a lot of people probably would have said, well, that's a strange move to make. But I was going to get priced out if I didn't make these moves, and they were long-term moves, which I knew with the hit and with what I was doing, they might not pay off this week. So I did Rudiger and Havertz to Chilwell and Foden. I just feel that Chilwell, going into game week 10, is the standout Chelsea defender, the standout pick, and also is an absolutely elite FPL asset that I felt I can't go any longer. Sat there with Rudiger. Not typically a player I'd have in my team. I don't really, in general, like centre backs. I like your attacking full-backs, wing-backs, and then equally Havertz to Foden. I just think Foden is just playing number 9 on some set pieces. I think he's probably attacking wise first name on the team sheet for City. So yeah, I thought it was justified to take my first hit of the season. So this week's not been amazing. 48 -4 all out, no one tonight. Salah captain. and then returns from Chilwell, Livramento, Rafinha, Benrahma, and yeah, not the best week, but not a huge red. I mean, I've actually got a green at the moment, but it'll be a red after tonight, after the auto subs, and obviously the Wolves v Everton game.
And Hwang's just scored Jimenez assist. So
no, it's VR correct. I think it's chalked off.
Oh, nice, perfect. Never mind then. That's good news. We just
Good
made
stuff.
we just maintained our rank slightly there. No, they were very bold moves, but I did like them. Yeah. But maybe it's partly because I also sold Havertz, and I didn't see many people doing that. So
I just feel like, you know, this both picks were going to escape me. It was either I bring them in now, or they're just gonna rise and rise and rise, and I won't be able to bring them in. And really for me, you know, I don't see, obviously Havertz is not a long-term pick. I think his sale by date is game week 12, and I think as for Rudiger, I mean, him to Chilwell is obviously, yes, you've got, you know, less minutes. We know that risk, but you know, I prefer the upside with Chilwell.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to why I did my move. So I obviously, when we podded last week, I'd already done my transfer. I'd done Havertz to Foden, and it was just the fact I saw Foden as that more long-term pick. So that's why I did it, and I got the price rises at least. It obviously cost me points, but I mean, I had a really, really good week. I got 70 points. However, I did bench boost as well. So my bench boost, technically, it got 9 points. With Sanchez, Pukki, Mbeumo, and Livramento. It was just I woke up on Saturday morning and I had Reece James benched, and then I shared that article with you, Josh, on WhatsApp about I think it's from the embargoed conference, press conference, where Tuchel was really bigging up Chilwell and James, and you were like, James is gonna start, which you changed your mind from the night before.
I did, yeah.
So then I had to put James back in the starting team, but I still didn't feel confident. I didn't know if I should bench Pukki. I didn't know if I should bench Tony. I had Rafinha benched at one point, maybe about 20 to 11. So I just thought, I'm just going to bench boost. And 9 points, it's not great, but it's done now. And I think it's going to help me at the end of the season a little bit more, because I won't have to worry about having a full-on playing bench. I can triple captain when I want. And I mean, there's a few different reasons. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, do you both think I've just wasted it by bench boosting in a single game week?
Yeah. I'm not going to deny. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Like, you know, you had a great week for one reason. You own Reece James. Simple as that. Yeah. Like, you know, your score without your bench boost is 61. It's a great score. And, you know, would have seen you a lovely green arrow, and you would have still had the bench.
But what if I'd benched Rafinha or benched James? Because I don't know who I'd have benched.
We've been through this already. I've got the message on my WhatsApp, 10:31 Saturday morning, saying that you were starting James. So
and who was I benching? Rafinha.
But that's fine. If you'd have, if you'd have benched Rafinha, even if you'd have benched, you know. Well, I think, yeah, Rafinha was the only one that scored points that you were considering benching, obviously, other than James. You know, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, right? At the end of the day, pretty much this week, because it was a fairly low-scoring week, I think pretty much if you got James in your team, it's irrelevant what the other 10 players do, really.
No, I know why I had a good week. It wasn't because of the bench boost. It's just more the decision behind it. I mean, Pukki, he only had one shot. He almost scored. Pras, what do you think? I'm not looking just for people to say nice things.
No, I'm going to be more sympathetic, actually. I was going to say, number one, the reason. So what happened to Mbeumo was the number one reason why I'm always hesitant to bench boost on a single game week. It's basically, you get, even with rotation on a bench boost on a double game week, you get 15 players out with 1.5 games at a minimum. So that was one thing. But in your case, I think just the positive is exactly what you said. When people will be wildcarding game week 32, you won't have to do that. So you can decide you don't have to dead end your team to the blank game week 31. You can decide to play your game. And of course, the point that you won't have to carry, you know, the bigger bench options later. Now, having said that, there's enough cheap options this season, or what feels like cheaper options. You never know what happens game week 30, but it feels like people will be able to carry an ESR, Mbeumo, Livramento, depending on how they're placed in the double game week. But look, there is more advantage to be had, which is why people played in game week 1 as well.
Yeah. I mean, that was something I've considered before, is obviously doing it in game week 1, but I guess we just don't know the lineups as much. I mean, to be honest, I was just happy I got 14 players out. But I mean, I guess that's enough talk about my bench boost anyway.
I think just one final thing I was going to say on it, Rich, just aside from the bench boost, I think, in FPL, you've just got to look at the bigger picture. You've just scored 70 points and got a game week rank currently before tonight of 56k game week rank. So at worst case, you're going to get a game week rank of what, 100k, 80k, 70k, something like that. It's a massive, massive green arrow. You own the biggest play, the highest scoring player in the game currently, this week, which was Reece James. And so, yeah, all right, the bench boost maybe wasn't as successful as it could have been, but the bigger picture is you had an amazing week. You're into top 50k now, and you're in a great spot.
Yeah, because when I wildcarded, I was 370k. Well, no, 368k. So, I mean, the wildcard's been a success, but it's been because of Reece James and Chilwell. I'm in no denial about that.
They've paid you back for last season. Let's say that.
Yeah, more. Yeah, I forgave him last week when he scored a goal, and then he scores a brace. So, but yeah. So we get straight on to our headlines then. So we're not on YouTube today, but of course, we get our stats from Fantasy Football Hub, and our first headline is Spurs. Quite simply, we've had a sacking today. Nuno's gone. It looks like Conte might be coming in, but that's not been. I don't think it's been officially confirmed, unless it's confirmed while we're recording. So if we start with you, Pras, what are your thoughts on Spurs? Are you looking to get certain Spurs players in? I mean, I guess the main two would be Son and Kane.
Yeah, with me particularly, I think after this game week, so after the international break, they have 4 amazing fixtures. It's worth jumping onto them for a couple of reasons. Number one, there is no single second big hitter that stands out. There's no other player at this stage who you want to captain. So it's basically you want to play with the fixtures, with these big guys. I personally am not convinced between Son and Kane and who to go for, and which is why I've got 6 million in the bank, so I can jump on whichever one who looks better. But look, I think I was looking at the numbers. One thing is very clear: Son is pretty much matching what he did last season, despite Nuno, despite everything. I mean, he's got an XG of 3.0 compared to 3.4 last year, an XA of almost the same 1.2. More goal attempts this season so far in the first 10 weeks than last season. So what you're getting with Son, whoever, whether Conte or not, you will get a guy who's performing for the team, who's motivated, and he's doing well. With Kane, it's a bit of a leap of faith. You know that the guy is, he will play striker. He's on pens, not that we're getting a lot of pens, but he will have the opportunity with the good fixtures, like he did with Newcastle, to perform. So I wouldn't hate on anybody because of team structure if they wanted to go on Kane, but you have to go on leap of faith kind of thing rather than using stats and what's happened so far.
It sounds like you're thinking you'll just get one then, so it's not a consideration for a double up, or at least straight away.
I actually haven't even played around with a draft which has Salah, Son, Kane, and the 4 defenders, which I think are more important than a Son and Kane, which is Cancelo, PA, and the 2 Chelsea defenders. So I don't even know if that's affordable.
I found a way I could do it, which is basically Foden down to Brownhill and then Antonio up to Kane. But it feels like sacrificing too much because, like we mentioned Foden earlier, I want to keep him for the long term or at least the medium term. And same with Antonio.
Argument again, right? It's the whole freemium argument, right? Because before you had, what was it, Salah, Ronaldo, Lukaku, and yes, I know Son's 2 million cheaper than 1.5 million cheaper than Lukaku, 2.5 million cheaper than Ronaldo, but it's still freemium. Like, if you liked freemium when it was Salah, Ronaldo, Lukaku, then you might want to go again on Salah, Son, Kane. I didn't like it in the first place, and I don't like it again this time. Like, I will be Salah and Son or Kane 100% and spread the funds, keep the nice premium defenders at the back, keep some nice mid-price picks in there, Foden, Antonio. It for me as well, like, I think Conte's a great manager, yeah, but I just feel like putting that much money into Spurs when okay, yeah, they could have a great new manager bounce, but they're not a Chelsea, a City, a Liverpool, and they're not going to be, at this point in, this season. It's for me, it's a little bit reminiscent of the whole hype around the Brentford double up, the Mbeumo and Tony double up, which for me again didn't feel quite right, And I think with Spurs, I think it's best just to invest, one for the time being and see how things go. And it's only really last week. It was sort of perma captain Salah. Really, I think it's going to be, something big's going to have to happen to even wrestle the armband off Salah, let alone investing in both of them. For almost £25 million worth of your budget.
I think that's why, or a big reason why, because I obviously when I wildcarded, I got Son, and I had a loose plan to get Kane. And I think at the moment, I agree with what you both said there. I'm not going to consider going for the threemium again. That did not end well for me and forced me to wildcard. And not having, I like having Kane, but I like having Kane when he's lowly owned and I can captain him. And I don't think, I could captain him, but I think it'd be stupid. Like, I don't think there's any need to take that risk.
I think what Kane does is he holds a spot, which means you can get to Ronaldo when United's fixtures work well, to Lukaku. If Vardy starts banging again, which I think it's all because he's been playing with Iheanacho recently while he's going off the ball a little bit. And I think that's what's great about Kane. Whereas I think really with Son, he's sat there at a price point of his own. You've got your premium midfielders, and then you've got your mid-price midfielders and your budget midfielders, and Son is somewhere between sort of premium and mid-price. So I think really in terms of structure, Kane really lends himself as a better option, but obviously he's an additional 2 million. Which, if you were going to go Son and another, you're going to have a better squad, a better team there, because there's more money to use. I was just going to talk about in terms of their roles, because I was looking into when Chelsea won the league under Conte in 2016-17, and I think it's widely known that he is a manager that typically plays wing backs. In 2016-17, it pains me to say this, but that was Alonso and Victor Moses. But they did well. They did well. And
was that when Moses was a midfielder in FPL?
I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. Was he? But our typical formation then was 3-4-2-1. So 3 centre backs. Obviously, your 2 wing backs, 2 holding midfielders, and then 2 behind your number 9, who I would imagine will be Son, and you never know, maybe Dele Alli if you get something out of him, or Mora on current form. So I don't really know what role and how I expect it to work with Son and Kane, or if he goes 3-5-2. And has 3 more, holding midfielders, and plays just Son and Kane up there, and very much Son off of Kane. I don't know, but it's definitely going to be a wait and see. Hopefully, they get him in time that we can have, the Everton game at the weekend. Maybe even I think they got Vitesse on Thursday night.
We also need to hope they actually get him in at all. Otherwise,
there is that, because it's pretty slim pickings manager wise other than that. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think what we're going to see is it Son playing off Kane, or is it going to be Kane in the box a bit more, because that changes everything. If Kane's not being so withdrawn and going back to the whole sort of defensive midfielder, coming back and picking up the ball in the middle of the park, and Son's running beyond him, and if Kane is given a little bit more license to stay up there and stay around the penalty area a little bit more, then he could get back to his best Harry Kane and, scoring 30 goals a season. But I think it's definitely a watch for, obviously, in my opinion, this game week coming up. But then after the international break, I think you've got to plump for one of them just because of the fixtures.
Yeah, and obviously neither of you have got a Spurs player at the moment, so it's going to put a lot of pressure. I mean, Pras, are you going to be watching that Spurs game closely and then just making your decision off that one game?
Yeah, I mean, it's most likely going to be Son, to be honest, because I mean, I would say to people who hold a Spurs player, keep whoever you have, Kane or Son. To those who can make the move, like me, I don't have a premium striker, I don't have a Vardy, so I don't have to move the funds back to midfield. So for me, Son is an easy pick. But for people who have money up front, like Josh said, whether that's Vardy, whether that's Oba, I think going to then Kane and then going to Ronaldo it saves you a couple of transfers of putting money in midfield for Son and then bringing it back for Ronaldo. So I think that would be the approach. And I think with the structure that Josh, you talked about, I think Reguilon is also an interesting pick.
Oh, big time.
Again, depending on if Conte comes in.
And it'd be interesting to see who plays right wing back, because you'd imagine it'd be Emerson Royal, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's the right centre back and maybe Doherty has, is reborn as a right wing back.
The problem with that, and I get it, is obviously a lot of people are going to have Trent. They're going to have 3 from Chelsea and City and then Livramento or something like that.
Yeah, I know. So it's hard to get rid of any of them.
You're going to be so brave.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But I think a lot of it is being brave, because I think the template has been strong since the start. I think that people, a lot of the FPL community, Twitter, whatever, have got off to some great starts. I think that the premium defenders for City and Chelsea, and obviously Trent and Liverpool, are strong. I think that Salah as a captain is strong, but something's got to give, because we're not going to go through the whole season captaining Salah every single week. We're not going to go through the whole season, without certain players coming in and taking our interest. There's always fixtures changing as well. Those Spurs fixtures are incredible. And I think, right now, would you sell either of the Chelsea wing backs or Trent or Cancelo or Diaz for Reguilon? You wouldn't. But, further down the line, you don't know. I mean, Alonso in particular on the left was getting some incredible statistics and goals and assists for Conte when he was at Chelsea. And Reguilon's a decent player. I mean, he's not someone that's not been in our thoughts in the past. He's not someone that we don't look at. He is someone that we look at and think, he's a potential option. It's just because we're absolutely spoiled for choice in defence at the moment.
You're going to take 2 benchings or a cameo for people to just say, hey, is James worth it or is Cancelo worth it?
Well, look at Diaz. Diaz was a great pick a few weeks ago, and here we are. They conceded against Brighton, they lost against Palace, and all of a sudden everyone's considering getting rid of Diaz. I think he dropped in price last night. So it's the game is absolutely evolving. Quicker than anything at the moment, and that's often the case, but never more than when there's new managers in the game, because when there's new managers in the game, they're changing formation, they're changing who's in that lineup, and and obviously the morale levels of the team and individuals, which can just turn the whole game on its head, really. I think the other thing is as well, it's not just at Spurs. You've got the potential that it still happens at United. You've got potential new manager bounce. I would have thought there's going to be, we're not really looking at Newcastle assets massively, but you would have thought there's going to be one at Newcastle before the January transfer window. I can't see them, the way they're looking like they're going to go down, just sticking with Graham Jones for the rest of the season. They're going to want to spend some money in January, and they're going to want someone that they are happy to back with that money. And there's probably other teams as well that will get rid of as well before before the January transfer window.
I think at the moment, though, at least we've just got a small number of teams that we're looking at. And I love the point that Pras makes actually on James, mentioning, if he gets benched a couple of times, a couple of one-pointers, because he does become very frustrating. And it's why I genuinely was considering benching him, because he does come on in cameo, and he's a big reason I had a bad season last year, because he kept getting ones. Even when he had good games, he was only getting 6, 7, 8 points. So I don't expect him to keep it up, but I hope he does. And then maybe then we can start looking at Spurs players or Spurs defenders. But if we move on to our second headline, so it's Man United. I think we've touched on it a little bit already with, looking at Ronaldo again in a couple of weeks' time. So Kane possibly being a placeholder. And Pras, obviously you're a Man United fan, as we can tell by your wall, what you're wearing on your Meet the Manager video. Right. When we met you in London, you had your old school United shirt. I do like that shirt, that one.
It's my favorite. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's when I started supporting the team, and that's my first kit I bought.
It's the zip one, isn't it?
The zip one.
Yeah.
The sharp logo.
Yeah. No, that is a nice kit. But you support Man United, so have you got your eye on any? Obviously, some people have only just got rid of them. Like, a reason I wildcard is because I still had Shaw and Ronaldo. But now we might be looking at getting them back again, or was it just because they were playing Spurs that you look better?
I think you know the answer. It's we're in flux. That we don't. So there's been a formation change, as you'd imagine, in the Spurs game where we moved to 5 at the back. That helped paper over some of the cracks. Like, Shaw has been really poor this year defensively. So having a protection with 3 defenders helped. Maguire the same. The fact that Ronaldo has come in and scores goals but doesn't press, it helped that he was playing with a Cavani who was actually pressing, so Ronaldo could have a more free role. So the team itself looked more solid, but you just don't know, because I think we'll persist with this with Atalanta, with City, and we'll see how it works out. I mean, if you get battered by City, then back to the drawing board. The morale, the way we are playing is just so fragile right now that one bad performance and everyone's back on. I mean, I don't think anyone's off Ole out. No. But this is we have to tread very carefully with United assets. Much like we're talking about Spurs, the fixtures are absolutely amazing from game week 15. And it's unlike Spurs, it's not just 4 weeks. Actually, for United, it's a 10-11 game window where they have a sea of green. And look, I think Ronaldo, regardless of Ole staying or not, will be the guy who we go for. But there's a couple of caveats. So if we stick to 5 at the back, then obviously Rashford isn't an option anymore, because he's going to rotate with Cavani up front, because we're playing wing backs. There's really no position for a Sancho or a Rashford in that format. But if we, with the easier teams, or maybe this was just an experiment and we go back to the 4 at the back, then Rashford is a good one to watch out for. He's a good price as well, I think 9.6. So it's an easy downgrade to a Son if you didn't want to go a Kane to Ronaldo route. Luke Shaw will come back, but then you have to go back to the discussion on who are you going to drop in your 5 at the back that you have at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's really it. I think we have enough. We're blessed with another 4 weeks to assess how they are. If people hold Ronaldo, keep him. It's fine. I mean, we do play City and Chelsea in the next 3, but we also have Watford in the middle. And an interesting point in game week 12 is Ronaldo plays Watford and Salah plays Arsenal. Now, I know everyone is on perma-cap Salah for the rest of the season, but you watch a blank against West Ham, and suddenly it's only 1 assist, in 2 matches for Salah, and people are talking about Ronaldo in game week 12. So it can change. So I would say with United, I would tread very carefully. Don't touch them for the next couple of weeks. Go to Spurs. Spurs is a nice hop off to a United asset, and then we'll find out what happens. I mean, one of the things of the news from Conte today also impacts United in the sense that now it feels like Ole is going to be backed for longer. If even if there is somebody coming in, we'll probably wait for Ten Hag in the summer if we get him. So which means there'll be a caretaker manager kind of setup. So there won't be that big new manager bounce with Conte coming in, similar to what we might see at Tottenham. So it's a little bit of wait and watch. I've suffered for 9 years now without a trophy, and without the Premier League, and it doesn't look to improve even with Ronaldo. So that's a little bit of a not so optimistic outlook on United.
Something interesting you said there was obviously the fixture turn in game week 15. I've actually been wondering if this has been overblown a bit by, the FDR on the website. So on the official website, you just see a load of green.
Right.
But when I was looking at like fixture tickers, say you go to game week 15 and sort by like 5 weeks, Man United are only like fifth on the fixture ticker, for example. And you can play around with it. And that City have got better fixtures than, for example. So I do wonder if it's just seeing all the green makes it look better. I mean, obviously, it doesn't mean a fixture ticker is better than what's on the official website. They have people input them, and it's an algorithm at the end of the day. But I do wonder if it's that easy, that run, because I guess if people are going to go Kane, because they then can go to Ronaldo, they might just do it anyway, regardless of how you're playing. And sometimes my experience is we can look too far into the future, because obviously I went premium because I wanted to get Lukaku for this run of Chelsea fixtures. And all along, I should have had Reece James and Chilwell, the ones we weren't even talking about back then.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess it's just trying to adapt. Maybe we should concentrate on Spurs first and then worry about United when it happens.
That's fair. That's a fair comment. And that gives you the luxury of time to see where they're going with this team. And I think your point on fixtures is a good one. I would say sometimes it's a case of it doesn't matter if it's green or gray. Basically, there's no red or maroon, whatever that color is. So we actually don't play City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Tottenham, West Ham. I think West Ham is the only team we play between game week 15 and 27 that are in the top 6. So that I think makes a little bit of a difference. But yeah, it's not. We play Norwich, Newcastle, Leeds is I think in 10 weeks. So yeah, it's not super amazing, but it's the fact that you can bank on that player hopefully for the long run.
So it's more like a consistent player you could hold for a while rather than maybe every week kind of captain, which maybe you'd expect for that price. Because obviously at the moment we've got Brentford with these amazing fixtures, not to compare Man United to Brentford, but obviously we've got them in because they've got a consistent run of games where you're going to play them each and every week.
Right.
But I guess you'll play Ronaldo every week if you had them regardless, just because you're paying 12.5 million and it's Ronaldo, as it were.
I can easily see myself going just Ronaldo for those fixtures, and maybe that's it. Really.
Do you think he's on penalties?
So I think the last we know is Bruno is about to take them in the game despite missing it in the Premier League fixture. And since then, we haven't had a pen. So we just don't know. I mean, look, Bruno's a good asset regardless. I haven't talked about him, but in the five at the back, he's basically the guy. He's the Paul Scholes equivalent. He's coming back to help with possession, but then he's also the main creator. What happens at four at the back is you have Rashford and Greenwood or Sancho on the wings, and they work with the Shaws or Aaron Wan-Bissaka. So Bruno is the guy coming into the box, and when Ronaldo was playing, he wasn't coming into the box as much. So that impacted him a lot more. I mean, he was still assisting, but I think with this formation where you have Cavani, Ronaldo, and Bruno, they're almost the three the creators and the scorers. So he will be in the points a lot. If he was Son's price, we'd have the same debate of Son versus Kane on Bruno versus Ronaldo. Unfortunately, he's not. He's the same price. You might as well go for the greedy, shot taker who's going to be in the box waiting for the ball. So very difficult to say go Bruno over Ronaldo for the same price or almost the same price.
True. No, you guessed why I was wondering, because I was thinking maybe you could look at something like Mane and then go to Bruno. But again, then I guess we're speculating because we don't know how good, or we don't know who's on penalties or how good United are going to be at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, Josh, what do you think? Have you got your eye on any, or are you just being a bit flexible as well?
I think the Kane to Ronaldo thing in game week 16 is just so obvious. I wrote a long thread on my thoughts on United about a month ago, and nothing's changed really. And I generally feel like since Ronaldo's come in, he's been the problem that has started all this. And don't get me wrong, I'm not by any means saying Solskjaer is a great manager. We all know he's sort of, punching above his depth really in terms of this job in general, and has been the whole time. But I think really, what Ronaldo arriving has done is he's had a whole pre-season after the Euros, of getting his team ready. They beat Leeds 5-1. They drew 1-1 with Southampton. They beat Wolves 1-0 away. Not the best start to the season, but fine. 2 wins out of 3. Thumped Leeds 5-1. And then Ronaldo came in, and it all looked great after the first game. Obviously, they beat Newcastle 4-1. He got a brace, but it's literally gone downhill and got worse and worse and worse until the week just gone against Spurs. And I kind of feel like the reason why is because Solskjaer's sort of built the team, and what he'd been doing in his time in the role, they've been very much a counter-attacking team with a lot of pace in Rashford and Greenwood, Martial, even now adding Sancho to the mix. A lot of goals coming from Bruno. And then in comes Ronaldo, and obviously he's got to play him because he's Ronaldo and he's bigger than the club. And not only is he bigger than the club, but he is absolutely, every United fan's favourite player. And I think so. They've essentially, rather than fit Ronaldo into the way that United play under Solskjaer, they've tried to change the way that United play to fit in with Ronaldo. And they've not got the right personnel for it. Ronaldo in recent years, not when he was at United before, but in recent years, has very much been a player who has in recent years been, wanted balls into the box. He's almost Cavani without the work rate. And United don't have players who put balls into the box in Greenwood, in Rashford, in Martial. They're not those players. They're inverted forwards. The players to do that are Shaw and Bruno, really. And by doing that, then you starve Bruno of his goals. And I just think the whole system's just a little bit, it's screwed, if I'm honest, at the moment. And they've almost got one group of players, this young, quick, fast-paced, United of last season, who are looking, great in the Rashfords, the Greenwoods, etc. And then they've got a 34-year-old Cavani and a 36-year-old Ronaldo, who is a completely different style of play, and the two don't really go together.
So why are you saying that you're going to definitely? Well, you didn't say definitely, but it sounded like you're pretty confidently going to be getting Ronaldo.
Because they're not going to drop him. And Ronaldo is Ronaldo, and Ronaldo will score goals. We could also between... Yeah, we could also...
It doesn't sound like you're very confident in that, the way you're speaking.
Even during this run, Ronaldo scored goals, but the team haven't been winning games, right, until the week.
He's only just overtaken Pookie on FPL points this weekend.
But he's won them pretty much every Champions League game recently in the dying minutes. But what I'm saying is that he's scored goals still, but the team haven't been performing well. The team haven't been winning. And my whole theory on it is that it's just not gelling at all at the moment. And you see the team at the weekend, and I actually thought that was a really good way of working to obviously Ronaldo and Cavani's strengths by going 3-4-1-2. You get Bruno in a sort of free role. You get wing backs whipping the balls in. It works. But what do you lose? You lose Rashford and Greenwood from the lineup. You lose Sancho from the lineup. So it's almost like whatever you do, you can't win. And I generally don't know. Pras might have a different view on this. What a different manager would do if they went in there, because with the current personnel, without spending 100-200 million in January, I think it's really difficult.
Look, I think you've made all the right points. I think, to Rich's point on why Ronaldo, the thing is, when you're playing against a low block team, and this was the issue last season, which United couldn't overcome actually, is because you were counter-attacking, you had pace. If this team would just sit back, you wouldn't be able to attack. So we struggled against those teams. This season, it's the opposite, where if the team is, because we're useless at pressing, basically if the team can pass out of, the non-existential Ronaldo press, and then they just walk through the defenses on a higher line, we just can't cope. But against the easier teams from game week 15, they're just going to sit back. So you have, as United, you have a lot of possession. You have ability to whip the ball in. Bruno's going to whip it in. Shaw's going to whip it in. Maybe Wan-Bissaka learns how to cross, so he'll whip it in. And, so there will be a lot of opportunities. And the guy is the best header of the ball that has ever existed, in my view. So, I mean, you want to have that guy because that's, you'll get a lot of balls in the box for Ronaldo. He takes a lot of shots. He goes in for every header. It's just points. Whether you captain him or not, he'll be the second best asset to own in that period.
I agree. I agree, and that's what it is. The way it is whether the system or how things are working or not. With those fixtures and the way that Ronaldo is Ronaldo, he will score goals, and you can't look at a fixture list of Norwich, Brentford, Brighton, Newcastle, Burnley, Wolves.
There's a problem with that fixture list, though. It's because it's over Christmas. So a couple of the games, for example, game week 19 is a Boxing Day game. Let me see, they're away at Newcastle. And then 2 days later, home to Burnley. So I know it's not the biggest trip, Newcastle back to Manchester, but it's only 2 days apart. And we've already seen him rested once for that Everton game.
It's a good point. It is a good point. And you know that Kane, on the flip side, is his best time is Christmas. It always has been.
Yeah.
And
it's I think it
could be that you get Kane in for those 12 to 15, and then you find it hard to jump off.
Yeah, because even if let's assume Manchester United are better team than Spurs, and Kane, you got Kane playing 90 minutes every week, like you say, or every game. Even if it's 2 days apart, he's on penalties. We don't know those two things with Ronaldo. So I'm not saying I won't get Ronaldo because I might get scared nearer the time, but I can't see him playing every single game over Christmas, despite his fitness.
I mean, even with the five at the back, Greenwood can play there, Rashford can play there, Cavani's already playing there. They will be, yes, you're absolutely right. It's a point people need to consider, which, by the way, we need to do for our City and Chelsea assets as well.
100%. It's
not
just Ronaldo.
I do think you're right. Rashford and Greenwood can play there. It'll be a little bit different, but in the right game, they can. I mean, they can definitely play off Cavani. I think going back to Spurs, the great thing about Kane is you can sit there, a little bit of money in the bank, wait and watch, and you watch. You can watch United. I mean, yes, that Watford game is lovely, but Kane's at home to Leeds. You flip a coin as to who scores more points that week. If you see a little bit of Kane returning to a bit of form, you've got from you've got City obviously this week. They've got Watford, Chelsea, Arsenal, and on current form, Crystal Palace you can avoid. So you've got the next 5 games to watch them, see how things develop, see if a new manager comes in, or if he doesn't, do they stick with the 3-4-1-2, and see how things evolve. While Kane's got these great fixtures, it's a very, very easy swap. And I think, that probably is the obvious route, really.
Yeah, it's definitely one for us to keep our eyes on for the next few weeks. But if we get to something maybe I wouldn't say it's a pressing concern, but our third headline is what to do with Antonio. And there's obviously been a lot of frustration yesterday that West Ham won 4-0 and he didn't get anything at all. The fixtures get slightly harder, looking at fixture tickers. So the third headline is what to do with Antonio. We've had questions on Twitter, FPL Diz, who quite simply says keep or sell Antonio. And then we've got another question, what to do with Antonio and Ronaldo. So obviously we've covered Ronaldo there. So Pras, if we start with you, what are your thoughts on Antonio and where he stands in our FPL team, who, funnily enough, has very good fixtures coming up around the same time as Ronaldo in game week 16?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of things on Antonio, on why people want to sell. Number one is the fixtures. And number two is his stats dropping off, basically the last 4 game weeks versus the first 4, let's say. So I did a little bit of work on these two things just to kind of debunk the theory. So number one on fixtures. So if we look at the next 4, they've got, I think, the bottom or second bottom of the ticker because they play Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City. But then if you actually extend the ticker to the next 10, 11 weeks up to game week 21, they're number 3. So actually their fixtures after playing these 3 guys is really, really good. So number one, what we're saying is we want to get off Antonio and then buy him back, I think, as long as everything else remains true. So you're talking about not just removing him, but basically 2 transfers, getting him in and out. Number 2 is in terms of his form. So people are talking about the fact that, his numbers have dropped off. He used to, he was delivering an XGI of, I think, over 4 in the first 4 game weeks, even though that included a red card. But in the last couple, it's around 2. Now, I just want to say that if you compare those numbers with the other strikers that we have currently, he's still a top 3, top 4 attacker. So even though the numbers have dropped off, there are not many options that exist to replace him. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if you want to get off him, where are you going? Are you going for a Tony who scored 1 goal all season? Are you going for a Kane, which you have no data to back up why you're going there? You're purely going off, you think he will do well. And who else is out there? Maybe Vardy, who's done well the last couple of weeks, Ronaldo early. I just think the guy has been delivering. He's putting up really good numbers. West Ham are looking good. I mean, they've just beaten Aston Villa, Everton. I don't see a reason to sell him personally.
Pras, where are you? From what game week are you seeing his numbers drop off?
So I looked at the first 4 game weeks of
Okay.
the season versus the last 4 game weeks, because he missed 1 game in the middle. So it's a 4 game week to 4 game week comparison, where in the first 4 game weeks he had 4 goals and 3 assists. In the last 4 game weeks he's had 1 goal and no assist.
So 7, 8, 9. Oh, you're talking from an output, not a stats perspective.
And no, even the stats. I mean,
because if you look at him amongst other strikers, he's top of everything.
Yeah.
Still, for the last 4 fixtures, I mean, the last 4 fixtures. So 7, 8, 9, 10, or even if you went, do you know what? You could go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So since his suspension, since he's come back from his suspension. So yes, from a FPL scoring perspective, he's got 2 goals. That's it. 8. He's scored 8, 2, 1, 7, 2. But 6 to 10, from a stats perspective, he's amongst all strikers. He's had the most penalty area touches. Mm-hmm. He's had the most shots. Hold on 2 seconds. He's had the most shots in the box. He's
up there for everything, basically, isn't he? Because
big chances is a little bit down.
Yeah, but that's Pickett, especially how bad a lot of the other strikers have been. Because I removed him.
He's still like, for his price as well, and that he's nailed. I still think he's a tough sell at the moment.
And he's gone up 0.7 as well, for people who care about price changes. I mean, it was because something I did. I removed him when he was suspended for that 1 game, and I think I only just got him back on the wild card, and I was terrified watching him. He could have scored in pretty much every game. He's had at least 1 golden chance, and I was watching the games with Benrahma, only owning Benrahma, and I wasn't thinking, I hope Benrahma scores. I was thinking, I hope Antonio doesn't score. And I think when you're thinking that, you made a mistake. I think he's an easy hold. I think the only player I'd consider, and Pras mentioned him, is Tony. If you couldn't get Tony in another way, I'd consider it, but it still doesn't feel right.
I don't think so. I mean, I own both, and I mean, Tony's been an absolute nightmare for me. I owned him game week 1 and 2. He blanked both of them.
It's the fixtures, though, isn't it? It's that
he went 3, 4, 5, and 6 for me, where he scored some points, and he came back 7, and he's blanked the last 4. But yeah, I mean, Tony's all right. I mean, I still think for a 90-minute man who's on pens in a fairly exciting team who have dipped a little bit recently, he's fine. But just on Antonio's stats again, I know I was mainly talking more about penalty area touches and shots and big chances and whatnot. But even if you look at his assist potential as well, chances created, he's top for that period again. Big
last goal in the game yesterday, he should have had the assists. Very unlucky.
He's just an all-round machine, and we know he's great on bonus as well. I mean, touch wood, his hamstrings can keep going. He's looked a lot better from that perspective. So
There might be some people hoping his hamstrings go because it will make the decision easier. Because I think from what we've all said, I think it's a hold, isn't it?
yeah,
I don't think we're going to have any argument against it. So,
but I think the main reason is, I mean, yes, his stats are great, but I think the other reason is what are the alternatives right now. If you were sat here and we had a fit and healthy Bamford, a fit and healthy DCL, there's two great options that you might consider going to.
you're shopping around at like Wilson's.
Yeah, and
Stuff
Ian
like that, aren't
Acho,
you?
who was nailed. I mean, the guy got 45 minutes at the weekend.
Yeah.
Like, there's no one. So yeah, he's 100% a hold for me.
I have one other point on Antonio. Now, of course, if we're saying hold him, then what about the fixtures that are coming up? So City, Liverpool, Chelsea. So when he plays Liverpool, Smith Rowe plays Watford at home, Mbeumo plays Norwich at home, Hwang plays Crystal Palace away. So you could easily have him on the bench if you choose to. And I'm not suggesting you do that, but you have that option. When Antonio plays City, Smith Rowe plays Newcastle at home, Mbeumo plays Everton at home, and Hwang plays Norwich away. Again, all these three bench options, which a lot of people have, they're there. When Antonio plays Chelsea, again, Smith Rowe plays Everton away, Mbeumo plays Leeds away, and then you have Livramento playing Brighton. So you have options to bench him in all those weeks, and we're blessed with the time there.
That's really good. I think the thing is as well, you've probably got to look at it and go, his ceiling should be one goal, right?
Yeah.
And likely no bonus, presuming the other team wins, right, and they score 2, maybe 3. So yeah, I think that's great.
I completely agree with that, and it's actually what my plan is at the moment. I'm torn between him and Cancelo this week, but the thing is, there's so many cheap options. We've got all these defenders that we can play. I mean, you could conceivably play 4 or 5 at the back every week.
Cancelo, man.
Yeah, so you just literally just carry him through on the bench. But if we go for the Iceman's piss break now, and then we'll be back with our questions. Welcome back, and we're going to get straight onto our community questions. I also just wanted to mention, obviously, our FPL Surgery Podcast League. We're in the middle of the Wolves game at the moment. It's half time, so we won't do the league update this week, but hopefully we'll get it back next week. The code for that is 4U2742, and we'll get straight into the questions. So our first question comes from Mace. Still worth bringing in James, so Reece James, I assume. And is big at the back still the way to go, or should we unload to get the likes of Son, Mane, etc.? So, Josh, should we come to you first because you don't have James?
I don't know.
Is bringing in James like a priority or high up your list?
I had him. I brought him in my wildcard game week 4, and he managed to miss every game week pretty much for one reason or another of being suspended, getting his house broken into, and getting injured and whatnot. And I got rid, and obviously now he's gone on to big points. But it all depends. It all depends what your situation is. Presumably, most people listening to this pod have got one Chelsea defender of some sort. I still think Chilwell's the better option out of the two, for the reasons mainly that he's more of a 90 or 0 man, whereas I think James, as we know, Tuchel loves to bring him on for a cameo. I think other reasons, Chilwell's on set pieces, and I think the third thing I would say is that I know James just scored a brace against Newcastle, but in general, I think Chilwell is more of a goal threat, more of a a player that gets in more dangerous positions. James scored a brace from an XG of 0.17. Typically, Chilwell scores higher XG chances, and for me, that's why I prefer him.
I think James has better attacking stats, better underlying stats than than Chilwell. Well, obviously per 90. So when he's been on the pitch, because he's been unlucky a couple of games this year. Like he got injured against City, didn't he?
Sure.
And he got sent off.
But the per 90 are Arsenal when they were absolute trash. Game week 2, was it? Norwich when we won 7-0, and Newcastle. I mean, 3 weakest teams in the league, really. When Arsenal were the first 3 game weeks of the season, they were absolutely horrific. So it's a little bit skewed judging him on those 3.
I mean, he's still a defender, though. You can't judge him in the same way as you judge Salah or something, for example. do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm just saying the opposition for those 3 games are about as good as it could possibly get. I think is James a priority to bring in now? He still is the same player who I always see as being an absolute risk. As in, you don't know if he's going to start any given game week, and if he doesn't start, there's a good chance that he comes on for a cameo. And I think every James owner going into game week 10 that we've just had looked at it and probably thought, oh God, if he doesn't start, I'm going to get 1 point
that's
here.
Me. When that fake lineup news came out, I was like,
every single James owner who is an FPL player with their finger on the pulse would have thought exactly that, and then obviously went on and got 21 points. But I think,
but ignoring the 21 points.
Yeah, honestly though, ignoring the 21 points, take a step back. The situation has not changed. He was always a great wing back. He's always been a great player. He's a great player. I've always said how amazing James is, but from an FPL perspective, he comes with higher risk. He is a little bit like Jota in that sense. As yes, there's a very high points potential when he's on the pitch, but often there's a cameo, and that's why I think the other Chelsea defenders, are the 90 or 0 ones are a little bit less of a risk.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was this quote today from Nizar on Twitter. He's a Chelsea account, and he said that Chilwell said he wants defenders to score goals and attackers to do the defensive side. So obviously it might not be that groundbreaking because we've seen a lot of goals from Chelsea defenders, but I'm just wondering, obviously, if James is doing that, and that's what Tuchel wants, maybe this is his breakout season. I know we said it last season as well, and me in particular, sorely disappointed. I just feel because he was 5.5 million, he's now 5.7. And I feel like this is the kind of player that can get away from you. Like if he scores again against Burnley, suddenly he's over 6 million, and then you leave it a couple more weeks. It's how I felt about Alonso. I just felt like, and I know I was wrong, but I felt like I just had to get on him and then find out if I was right.
My concern with James is Azpilicueta. Like he's our captain, and has been phenomenal for us, not just over the years, but
he wants his defenders to score goals.
Yeah, but under Tuchel, he's been phenomenal for us. And there's 2 positions that he plays on the pitch: right centre back, right wing back. Whereas, and he's going to play some games. You've also got.
Can't James play right centre back?
He can, but then you're not going to get anything out of him really, other than a 6 points.
Same as Azpilicueta, wouldn't it? And James can play in midfield.
Yeah,
I know I'm clutching here now, but he played in midfield for Wigan, didn't
he? Luckily we're not Wigan, and second of all, with the choices we've got at centre midfield now with Jorginho, Kante, Loftus-Cheek, Kovacic, we don't need to use James there. But what I'm saying is that you've got our club captain, who is not a Gary Neville club captain. We're talking someone who plays most weeks, apart from the last 2. Is that I feel that there's a bit more of a threat to James, whereas I feel like with Chilwell the threat is Alonso. Whereas I think with James it's we've got Rudiger, we've got Thiago Silva, we've got Christensen, all of which are vying for one of those 3 centre-back spots. And then there's Azpilicueta. So if all those 3 play, Azpi has to play right wing-back. Or if 2 of those 3 play, Azpi plays right centre-back and James starts. It's just, for me, it's risk, it's headache. If, however, you've got Chilwell and you're adding James to him, I think it's probably a little bit more of an easier decision. But I think it's would I go as James my only Chelsea defender? I'm not sure I would.
It's a headache having to discuss this every week, and it keeps changing as well. But Praz, we got a similar question for you. So Jay was asking on our Slack channel if you can only pick one moving forward, James or Chilwell. So I mean, it sort of is the same question. Who would you go for if you could only have one, or is the answer both?
No, Chilwell would be the one. I agree with it. I mean, the thing is, Azpilicueta will play. And the reason James comes on is because he can't run the wings for 90 minutes. So he needs James to come on, make an impact. He doesn't need that on the left. So I think the reason I have, and we'll come to my team later, is because I only had James, I was more comfortable with doubling up and getting Chilwell as well. If I only had Chilwell, I could probably just sit and think, do I need a forced defender? Can I use that money up front and do something else, maybe like a Kane and Son that we were discussing? But the other thing that has changed is Chalobah for some reason, and Josh, maybe he started 5 games. Sarr has started a game. I mean,
completely forgot about Chalobah. I completely forgot about Chalobah. Chalobah's another one to throw in the mix, and he plays where? Right centre back. Yeah. And when he plays right centre back, the choices are Azpilicueta or James right wing back. It is. James is phenomenal at the weekend. Yeah, he plays phenomenal every time. But Azpilicueta is our captain, and that for me is why it's a headache every week in, week out, and I just personally don't wish to have it. As for Sarr, just onto Sarr, he's very, very new to the team. I know Chalobah is too, but I think that Chalobah has built up his trust already in the short time that he's had, in the first team this season. Sarr has played 2 EFL Cup games, and I think that Rudiger owners are fairly safe. I think that the only thing I could maybe see Sarr playing 1 game over Christmas to give Rudiger a bit of a rest, but 1 game at best, I'd say.
We do have more questions on Chelsea defenders, which we'll cover quickly. But just then, I think you brought me back down to earth a little bit, because I was panicking about James before the weekend, as our WhatsApp chats I'm sure would show. And obviously him scoring a brace has now made me think, he's going to play every game. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe we do have to temper expectations for them. And I know the frustrations they can have, but there is something quite nice about owning James and Chilwell. But there's a question about Azpilicueta as well from Mansage, basically asking what we should do with Azpi. So what would you guys do if you had Azpi, for example? Would you move him? I guess it depends who you don't have. Let's just say you just had Azpi. Would you stick with him, or would you move him on to Chilwell? Praz, if we start with you, and then
look, I'm of the mind that you just stick. I mean, it's he's just come off the injury, so he's going to play again. It's not like he's lost his spot or anything fundamentally has changed. So I don't think you need to, or the person who's asked the question needs to knee-jerk and move somebody on. It's a luxury move. If you have nothing else that you want to do, fair enough. If you wanted to move to Chilwell, but I don't think that should be a priority at all.
The more I think about it, it's such a crazy situation. I've never done anything like this, because you don't get this, with any other team where like defenders scoring this heavily. Like Azpilicueta was the one I was jealous of a few weeks ago when he got a couple of slightly dodgy assists that robbed Lukaku. But Josh, what would you do if you had Azpilicueta?
I'd sell him 100%.
What, for Chilwell?
Yeah. The reason why is because that right side is just a nightmare. I mean, first of all, you've got James, who's now, more. I mean, he was always a threat. He's a class player, but now he's making that position, his own. He's looking even more first choice than he was a couple of weeks ago, right? Then you've got Chalobah. Then you've got Christensen, who can play right centre back. It's just, I wouldn't bother with Azpi. I think I'd go Chilwell. I think the left side with the Rudigers and Chilwells is just a lot better going down that route than it is going down the right side with the Azpis, the James, the whatnot. That's my personal opinion.
Just devil's advocate, though.
Sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying Aspi wouldn't come on like James. So you
Oh,
would
he
have.
would.
Would
He
he?
would.
Okay.
In the right game, if we,
He did in the Champions League. No, he came
yeah,
off, didn't he? He came off.
tight game. We're winning 1-0, 2-1. You want your captain on to take the armband and sort of see the game out. He definitely can have a cameo too. 100%. I think the only ones that don't have cameos, with our knowledge as things stand, right? And let's not say that anything could happen. Let's be honest. Tuchel's worse than Pep this season. Is Chilwell and
Mendy.
Alonso? Yeah, Mendy, Chilwell and Alonso, Rudiger, Christensen, Thiago Silva. They seem to be the ones that are 90 or 0.
Do you know what's funny is I just then thought of Rudiger, watching Rudiger. I know it was last week, that game against Norwich. He was getting so far forward. He won the penalty. And I was even thinking then maybe I should have gone Rudiger over James. So, I mean, maybe he's the one. But let's move on.
It's going to change every week.
Yeah, because we could do this segment every single week.
And the thing is as well, there's one good fixture left, right, which is this week at home to Burnley, and then the focus won't be so much on Chelsea.
The focus will be Man City defenders. I almost guarantee it. That would be the new, if Burnley score, if Cornet scores,
I
or Reguilon under Conte. That would be the.
My last word on Chelsea and James in particular, and this is something I tweeted the night before the Newcastle game, is with James, I think you just need to get rid of this headache of should I bench him just because he played midweek. You just play him, and over the course of 6
agree with
weeks,
that.
You get a 1-10, 1-15, 1-6, and you just take it.
I agree with that. You've got to treat him in the way you treat Diogo Jota, and you'll get a lot more out of him than you would have out of Jota. So
the problem I had with him last season, I guess we need him to be more nailed, because last season he was doing like a 1-1-0-8, 1-6. It really was like that bad. But I guess we've got better benches this season, or I certainly have better benches, because I was combining him with players like Lamptey as well, which wasn't ideal. And we don't have time to talk about Lamptey, but we'll move on from Chelsea. Honestly, there's still more Chelsea questions, but that's enough. That's enough Chelsea. Because it will all change. So, Tom from Fantasy Football Fixed, this is quite a good, interesting question. If you hadn't wildcarded already, when would you? Game week 15 for City and United's fixture swings. Game week 19 to prepare for the AFCON, and Chelsea going to the Club World Cup. So, I know the Iceman, for example, still has his wildcard. Have either of you considered when you'd wildcard, if you still had a wildcard, if that's something you do in your spare time? Pras, if we start with you.
Look,
you have a lot of time in your hands to do that.
Look, I think I'm generally not one to wait, because you tend to fix your team as you go along, and if hits are needed, hits are needed. So I wouldn't delay it if the team needed it. Now, game week 12 sounds like a good time because of the Spurs fixtures. If, for example, if Conte comes in and they batter Everton over the weekend, you want to take the international break to, basically get in the first one on the Spurs assets, it's a good time. Otherwise, 15 is as good as any that I would think, is basically because you have some shift of value between the midfield spot, the striker spot, maybe, the big at the back isn't fashionable anymore. So I think that gives you enough time. But as I never personally put a marker down and say, this is the week I will do it. I'll have it in mind because there's a fixture swing. So therefore, but frankly, we plan for fixture swings anyway. I mean, we're talking about Ronaldo now,
Yes.
are 5 weeks down the line. So you don't need a wild card to back the fixture swings.
No, this is something, when I was holding my wild card, I didn't know what I was holding it for. And then it just suddenly realized, I looked at my team and was like, I need to change this many people. So, I mean, even this week could be a good week to do it. If you don't have, like, say, any Brentford attackers, you feel like you've got the wrong Chelsea defenders, in inverted commas. You've got Christensen, or just Christensen, and you want to get in Chilwell and James.
I think I'd hold till the international break. If you were going to go this
breaks,
week.
I'll tell you something here. So the international breaks, I guess Pras can vouch for this or disagree with it, but there weren't many. There was a lot of problems with players coming back. So there was a lot of flags, like, I don't know if I can have Rafinha, for example. There didn't also seem to be many price changes. Like, I caught the week after my wildcard, I got like £1 million in, I think 1.1 million in price changes, which I don't think people are getting during the international breaks.
I think the whole idea of
point.
doing it, the idea of doing it for price changes and the double price rises, that I think that's gone for 3-4 years now. I think it's more, if you wanted to do it for prices, it has to be a reactionary week, which yours was.
Yeah.
Where something fundamentally changes. Oh my God, Chilwell is the guy, and James is the guy, and Havertz is the go-to person because Lukaku's injured. So that happened in your week, so you got the price changes.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more than that. You get a couple of weeks to assess, reassess, look at data a little bit more. Sometimes it can be rushed. We have a Friday deadline this week, for example. Does a Tuesday to Thursday give you enough time to react with press conferences on Friday afternoon? That sort of stuff. And last but not least, you have something to do with the international break. So I don't hate it, but I don't think it's to do it.
Yeah, the reason why I said international break is because I just think it protects you. It protects you from, injuries, COVID issues. And also, I like the thinking time. Like thinking time in FPL is underrated.
No, I think the opposite there. I don't want to think.
People who make their transfers on like a Sunday night to catch the price rises, I don't get it. I don't understand how you do it. I really don't. Like I can't just, there's like this the ball, whistle's just gone and you're making your transfers. It's like, hold on a second, like. You need to kind of, personally, the way I feel is like you need to listen to your gut and let what is right for your team. Not to mention all the midweek football that's about to happen, like this week, for example, or even last week. Anyway, going back to the question from Tom, I think there's lots of options. It's all team dependent. I think they're all good options. I think game week 12 is interesting for the Spurs fixture swing. I think 15-16 is good for City and United. I think that I don't think it matters too much about the African Cup of Nations because I think at the most Salah's going to miss 2 games, and I think the amount of value we've all got built up with him will probably just bench him for 2 games. Personally, I think the Chelsea going to the Club World Cup one's an interesting one. That's a really interesting time to play it, but I think that might be postponed until January now, so it might be too late to play your wild card then. So I know it's a very sitting on the fence answer, but it's very team dependent. I could never put a game week on it. It just follow your gut. If you feel like I'm going to go, I want to get Son and Kane in and go for the double up game week 12, do it. Or you feel like I want to go for City, big on City, get a triple up and get, Ronaldo in for game week 15, 16, do that. There's no right or wrong.
Awesome. I think we've got time for one more question. So I think a lot of the questions, we had some really good ones this week. We've touched on quite a few of them. I'm going to go to the one from FPL Banger Podcast, who's asked, if we're holding this game week, safe to say that Havertz is a transfer out by game week 12. Maybe we're not best placed to answer this, seeing as obviously me and Josh transferred Havertz out. And Pras, you don't have Havertz, do you?
No, but I looked into this question. I mean, he's got, you've got Newcastle and Norwich as the 2 fixtures to test you, playing up front. You've got 2 shots on target, XGI of, I think, 0.6. That's not good enough. I mean, you can hold him for another week, but it doesn't seem like a long-term hold. And it fits well with the Sun move if you wanted to go there. But yeah, I think to answer his question, I wouldn't hold Havertz beyond Burnley.
No, I agree. I mean, I think me and Josh is getting rid of him, and Josh doing it for a hit says quite a lot as well. And I noticed actually Pulisic might be in the squad for the Champions League this week. I mean, I don't know, Josh, if that will affect his minutes. I mean, it couldn't it?
He could play up top. He won't, but he could. He won't because he's literally just come back and he's been out for ages.
Yeah. No, I just wondered, like, even if it was
Burnley,
sub on.
He'll play against Burnley, but it was just one of those things where it was, like I said to you earlier, Foden was going to escape me. I had to go for it. And, the hit was kind of spread across the both moves, if you get what I mean. It wasn't one that was my planned transfer and one was the one that I went for a hit. But I think for me as well, you've got to bear in mind, like, Havertz is going to plummet in price too. once these fixtures finish and Lukaku and Werner are back. So yeah, I would definitely, get rid of him in 12. Fixtures stiffen and he'll lose his spot, I would have thought too. I think that, our first choice when everyone's fit is probably Mount and Werner behind Lukaku. I think Hudson-Odoi will get dropped as well.
Yeah. I think the majority of people who got
he's not he's not first choice, unfortunately.
I think most people who got him for the 3 games. I mean, that was my initial plan, but obviously I bought it quite quickly. Yeah. But thank you everyone for your questions. We had loads this week, so we're gonna have to move on though, just so we can do our trap-ins. So Praz, if we start with you, I believe you've already done your transfer.
Well, I had 2 going in. And,
okay.
Just, of course, on cue, I did a Sunday transfer, much to Josh's annoyance. But what it was, I debated all week last week that I want to do Diaz to Chilwell because I liked what I saw from Chilwell for all of the reasons we've discussed. But I held off. I wanted 1 more week's information. I wanted to save transfer. So I have 2 going into this week. And then on Sunday, I said, you know what, my whole team has played. Even if Chilwell, let's say, misses on the weekend, this is not a 1-week transfer. I've got a plethora of options on my bench. I think I'm benching Antonio at this stage, Livramento. So I just went for it. I went for it last night. Diaz was dropping, Chilwell was rising. So that's one done. Feels good to have the 2 wing backs, Cancelo and TA at the back. I have 1 more transfer and 6 million in the bank. As things stand, I'm going to hold it and roll 2 free transfers into the international break, most likely with a view to getting in Spurs assets after the international break.
I couldn't do that. Look, first of all, having 2 transfers, so rolling last week and then having 6 million in the bank, that takes patience, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't have much patience generally, but I just didn't fancy anyone. I didn't want to go Lukaku to Vardy. I didn't want to get Son too early because of, they had 0 shots on target after going down in the previous game. They had 0 shots on target against United. I'm still skeptical. Of course, things can change with Conte, but I just didn't have any use for the money and my team looked good, as it does this week. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, there's been a few managers like you. Obviously, you've been doing well with lots of money in the bank. I know Andy Martin, FPL tactician. I think he's got about 6.5 million in the bank as well, and has had a couple of incredible weeks. So, not spending the money on players like Vardy and Kane has paid off. This far. And is it Salah captain?
Salah captain, yes. If I had, I'm trying to think who would tempt me. I don't think this is the week, even though West Ham isn't an easy fixture. I think Arsenal is the only team that has a good fixture on paper and can capitalize. But who are you going to back? Oba? But not for me. So yeah, for me, Salah's captain.
He could be someone interesting ahead. Like if someone was looking to wildcard in a couple of weeks, maybe you could go Oba for 1 week. No, then again, I wouldn't captain him. It just as a little punt.
Has Oba, right? I think he'll go there.
Yeah. But Josh, have you done your transfer yet? I'm guessing you'll wait until the last second.
Yeah, no. I'm rolling. That's the plan. I've actually got Lukaku still as my 3rd bench spot, so I've gone
that's patience as well.
The reason why is because the week he got injured, I just was like,
you did a -4 and kept Lukaku.
Yeah, because I looked at it and I was like, I don't really want any of the replacements there. I mean, we've spoken on the pod about how poor the striking options are at the moment. Obviously, that's now going to get better. Conte potentially going to Spurs, makes Kane hopefully better. Ronaldo's fixtures get good. And I'm sure there'll be some other options that arise over the next few weeks. But, at that time, I didn't want Kane. I didn't want Vardy. And my priority was originally Jota to Havertz, which is what I did. And then the week just gone was moving Rudiger and Havertz to Chilwell and Foden. So yeah, I want to roll this week, and then game week 12 I'll have 2 for the international break, and then I can move Lukaku out for either Kane, or I can obviously flip it and get Son in midfield.
Nice. And
captain is on Salah.
I still have to ask every time.
Yeah, I agree with Pras. It's not not really many other options this week. It is a bit boring, isn't it?
I think there were more options last week than there were this week. Like you could have gone Foden maybe, or.
And weirdly, I think that the West Ham away is better than Brighton at home, because I think that West Ham will be playing in Europe on Thursday night. I think he'll get a bit more space there than he would have done at home to Brighton. And yeah, just feels better. It's the last kickoff as well, which is nice. Always want the captain the last kickoff, ideally.
I always kind of hate that, but yeah. But I think I'm rolling this week because I've got a slight bench headache. I've just got to decide if I bench Antonio or Cancelo. And then I'll still have Pukki and Livramento on the bench as well. Captain Salah. It's kind of boring actually, but I'm enjoying having a bench because I'm not as tempted to tinker with transfers because I can just tinker with, changing my bench order or blowing my bench boost, stuff like that. So. So yeah,
feeling this season, right? I mean, with a bigger bench, no captain headaches, at least last couple of weeks. So yeah, it's weird.
I think the money is going to start becoming important again, though. You talk about like Pras has got a lot of money in the bank. You've got a lot of money on your bench. It's going to get to the point with the likes of Ronaldo and Spurs and stuff where it's going to start getting really important again, and we're going to be looking at those premium defenders at the back and working out which one's going to go first. What trashy 4.5 can I bring in for them to release the money from the more exciting picks in midfield or up front? Like, when I say more exciting picks, but you know what I mean, the premium picks that you want. It's inevitable, but that's just the game.
But then Christmas is coming, so ideally, and it's only a few game weeks till the Christmas period, so ideally I'd like to keep it, but I know what you mean, like especially when you're like 0.1 0.2 short of your dream transfer, you start like
put it this way, I wouldn't
moves.
be surprised if Trent went from a few people's teams. I mean, he's only just come back into some people's teams, but I think with the value that you're getting from the likes of Chilwell and James, and until recently the City defenders, and who knows what's going to happen with Reguilon and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised if Trent sacrificed by a few.
It would make Salah captain awful if you sold Trent, because you'll just have Salah captain, so you just would want him to blank because you wouldn't want Trent to assist him.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it myself.
There's going to be some weeks though where we don't. I mean, it's got to be done. I mean, last week with him, what was he, 199.8 or something stupid percent on live FPL? I was like, oh god, I think you've got to do it, and you've just got to pick your weeks, and the most important thing is not necessarily the week that you don't fancy Salah. It's more the week that you fancy someone else, that you think someone else has got a better fixture, or you've got a gut feel for them.
The only way it's not going to happen, the only way people are going to go against it is that Spurs against Norwich fixture, and it's going to take a lot from Spurs, like we were talking about earlier, for us to trust them.
Or game 12, right? I think Ronaldo. Well, if people own Ronaldo, Salah plays Arsenal, Ronaldo plays Watford.
Yeah, I actually prefer Spurs at home to Leeds that week.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I just think
Livramento away to Norwich. That could be popular on Twitter because everyone seems to love him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. So basically
he's just a load of Chelsea loan players that are just all the cheap spots this season, aren't they? Broja, Livramento. It was Gilmore at the start of the season.
Gilmore, yeah. Anyway, just a couple of bits. So if you can please help support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/FPL surgery, or you can Google FPL surgery Patreon. And if you want to sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, the link will be in the description on the podcast. And if I've managed to upload this audio to YouTube, it'll be in that description as well. I've still got to figure out how to do that. And obviously, when we're back after the international break, hopefully we're back on YouTube live again. And Pras, thank you so much for coming on and putting up with us. Obviously, having to use old technology with Skype.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on. And how can people find you on social media?
On Twitter, Pras_FPL, same on Instagram.
Perfect. And is there anything at all you want to plug?
Not really, to be
No.
honest.
I didn't tell you I was going to say that, but no. But yeah, no, go and follow Pras on Twitter. I'm sure most people do anyway. Yeah, Josh has just got one final thing to say.
Up the pod.
Up the pod.
Up the pod. I've just got to remember to click record.
Yeah, please don't mess it up.
Right, I got this.